Yeah, you're very early, you two. It's yeah, we were going to do secret things while you were not here. Here we go. It's been a bit fraught the last couple of days, but it's all pulling together now. So, hello, Chris. I need to make you co-host, don't I?
Yeah.
Yep. And is that Joe there hiding?
We've got two computers, so we're going to turn the sound off on one of them. I think.
Right. Okay.
Oh, that's a bit odd. It's coming through this. Right. Hang on a minute. Just say. That's better.
Yeah.
I had this.
Evening, Joe.
Oh. Right. Can you just say who we've got? E and F.
Yep. And Paul 2.
Paul 2.
Unmute yourself and tell us who you are, Paul.
Hi. Hello, Paul 2. Could you unmute yourself and give me your surname?
If you go to the bottom.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
We've got 3 Pauls.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's your surname, Paul?
Chowns Dove. Hyphenated name.
I'll leave that to you now, Chris.
Yeah, okay, so there.
Thank
you, Paul. Got you now.
Okay.
You get that?
Yes, thank you.
There's a lot of feedback going on there.
I'm going to have.
Chris and Joe are sitting next to each other on. Chris and Joe are sitting next to each other on adjacent computers.
Is that any better? No.
No.
We got Stu. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I've turned the other. I've come out of the other one. Doesn't work side by side. I'm getting too much feedback.
No, you've got to mute one microphone at least.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how. I can't. I'm not sure how. No, it wasn't the microphone. It was the speakers.
Oh right. Okay.
And I can't mute the speaker on the laptop.
Yeah. Okay. You've got.
Could I just, Stu? Could I just say that? Could you, when we start, could you make an announcement as to whether you're happy for people to record these sessions or not?
Well, I'm doing it, so.
I know, but other people need to know if you want to.
I haven't allowed them, so.
But somebody might stand behind somebody's shoulder and do it.
Oh right, well, it's not going to be very good, but they can't do it from the screen, so.
No.
No. But it is being recorded as we speak. Yeah, I'll top and tail it when it's all over and done with. Yeah, I think you've got some people waiting to come in. Yeah.
I can't see them.
People coming tonight.
Could you make? You haven't made me host again. I'm not the host yet.
Oh, I did just now. There we go. How about that?
Yeah, got it now. Beck Cork.
Right.
Yes. And Duncan Moore.
Cool.
C-O-R-K and Moore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's why I couldn't see it, Stu.
Yeah, I recognise his name. Yeah.
Hello, Duncan. You're muted at the moment. If you could know how to unmute yourself, do you?
Bottom left-hand corner of the screen with your mouse. You'll either have a pair of earphones or a microphone.
That's it. You've done it.
Is that any good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Well done.
I'll probably say this several times, but once the talk starts, I, as co-host, will mute everybody so we don't hear extraneous noises.
I heard some whining coming from the direction of Washington earlier. I don't know what that was.
No, I think the whining was coming from about halfway to Florida.
Well, yeah, it sort of went that way for some strange reason.
No, that
Doppler
was
effect.
crying. That was crying.
It's good to
Beck
see you all.
Cork,
I'll probably say that about 52 times before 7 o'clock. We're expecting about 90 odd people. So
can I talk to Beck?
yeah, sure.
Beck Cork, I hope you can hear us. We can't hear you at the moment, and we can't actually see you. So you should have a little symbol with a video camera. If you like to click that. Likewise, there's a little microphone button, and I have no idea if you're on a PC or an iPhone or an iPad. If you're on an iPad, you need to click the screen once to bring up those controls.
What I was going to do.
I can see Beck is trying to connect to audio,
Yeah.
but her camera is still turned off. I don't know if she can hear me either.
Any more waiting?
Nope. It comes up. Oh yeah, somebody. Marva Class,
Yeah.
KLASS.
Yeah. There's two of them.
Yeah,
well,
Harbour.
Probably on the same computer.
Yeah, they might be on the same computer. I don't know if that's a picture or the actual person.
Good evening.
Who is that speaking?
It is Martha Class.
Hello, nice to hear you. We can't see you at the moment. We can just see a picture of you.
Oh, right. Okay.
You
Let
need
me
to
see.
find your video camera and start the video.
Right.
Well done.
Yeah, that's it. You're on. Hello, welcome.
Brilliant.
That's fine.
Okay. Right. Right. I'm going to get myself a cup of tea
Yes,
and
of
then I'll
course.
be right back.
One sugar,
Okay.
please.
So I'll take the camera off for a while.
That's up to you. Jerry Cole, COLE. Yes or no?
Yeah, he's there.
And Lisa Rendell. Yeah.
Still not seeing you. She's gone. I think she's trying again.
She's turned her camera off, I think.
No, this is.
Got two new people. Hello, Lisa. Could you just make sure you can turn your microphone on if you need to?
Yeah, fine, sorry.
That's fine. I say once we start, I shall mute everybody, but yeah.
Okay, I'll mute it now.
Dibby Rochford.
Yeah.
Yes or no? You've got to tell me.
Divvy,
Yeah.
yes, with Ryan.
I don't know. Don't know about Ryan.
Did we throw them away?
Dibby Rochford. Who's this? Hello, Dibby. We can't hear you at the moment. You need to find your little microphone symbol and unmute it.
Can you hear me now?
I can. But as I
Perfect.
say, you can turn it off again now, as long as you know what to do. And I mean, everybody can if they wish.
Lovely, thank
And
you.
you can go and get yourself a cup of tea or a glass of
Oh, I
wine. or
have
something.
already, thank
Oh,
you. Thank you.
Good forward planning.
Yes. Thank you.
Who's this lady down here?
Got a cork.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's actually the cork out of the end of my smoker. But
Mhm.
Jerry Cole, I can see you're trying to join us. I think you might be able to hear us, but could you try to...
Oh, here he comes.
There he is, lovely.
Well done, Jerry.
Could you say something, Jerry?
no,
Jerry, can you hear us?
no.
Jerry, can you hear us? Might need to turn his speakers on in that case.
He's
Oh.
gone. He turned his video off.
Right, Jackie Mosdale
Mhm.
I know that name.
Yeah, go on, Jackie.
and John Ryder. Ryder first.
Yeah, got John Ryder.
Okay.
There's Jackie.
Hello, Jackie. Oh, it's gone again.
Hi, Jackie.
Oh, Beck. Well done.
Well done.
Hooray.
You're very good. You're muted at the moment. That's fine. I mean, you can. Yeah. And now say something, please, Beck.
Hello.
Lovely. You're there. Okay.
Well
that's
done.
fine. You can mute yourself
Yeah.
again now because basically it's just a sort of listening exercise. We had Jerry Cole once, didn't we? And we had John Ryder once. But he's
Mhm.
going to get Lisa's camera's on.
I'll phone him back.
We've got Nancy Lovely. I think it's on the list as Gavin Lovely.
Lovely, Nancy.
What?
Yes, say yes or no.
I've got Gavin Lovely.
Yeah, it's got to be the same family, hasn't it?
I would have thought.
They know I was doing.
Only another 83 to come.
We should get started by 3 in the morning.
We should, yeah.
I'll have a lot of wine by then.
Yeah, but
Good man.
downstairs. It's it's all
Positive
very well.
attitude.
Evening, John.
Who's this? John Ryder, hello. Oh, gone again. I thought we saw Jerry Cole once. Perhaps he's turned his camera off again. Right, Andrew Caldwell. Say yes or no.
Hang on a minute. Andrew Caldwell. Yeah, got him.
Garth Dracy.
Yeah, that name rings a bell.
Drazy, Garth Drazy. Yeah,
Arrowsmith, John.
yeah.
Norbert Kay.
Kovacs.
Okay. Norbert Kovacs. That's it. Got him.
I would have, yeah. Oh, and I've just let in someone called Steve without checking his name.
I think that's Steve Burkett.
We've got Steve Line. We met him previously.
I'm here.
Steve, hello.
Hello.
Are you Steve Line, by the way?
Yes, that's correct.
That's
Yeah, good.
fine. Jolly good. Well done. Who's this? Hello, Garth Drazy. Can you hear us? John Ryder, we've seen him.
No.
Garth Drazy, can you hear us? Okay, that's fine. Wave. Obviously, if there is somebody not hearing us, you need to turn your speakers on.
They won't hear you say that.
Oh, this is true. Right, Claire Rawle, R-A-W-L-E. Tell me. Jerry Cole.
Rule, Claire Rule, yeah. Cole.
Jerry Cole, Mary Speed.
We've got Drake. Yeah, hang on. Speed.
Which one?
Hang on. We've got already a Mary Speed. Yeah. So
And
we've
Jerry
got
Cole?
Yeah. We've got ticked him already.
Okay.
Well, we ticked him already.
Rushbrook. Bob?
all the way from Whitley Bay.
Rushbrook.
No.
Bob. Bob.
Where is that? Hang on.
Yeah, there's a Rushbrook, isn't it?
Yeah, there's Bob Rushbrook. Yeah, okay.
Chris Wall.
Yeah, got Chris.
Gary Bridgeden.
Yeah,
Steve Everett.
yeah.
You're unmuted.
Unmuted.
Unmuted, so you can be heard.
Rupert Charman.
So what do I press?
Nothing.
Yeah.
Anne Ludkin.
Yeah.
Paul Pearson.
Yeah.
Oh, lost him. Did we do Steve Everett?
Yeah.
Michelle Wilson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Susie Bell.
Yeah.
W. Lowe, L-O-W-E.
There's Andy Lowe, and there are two Lows.
We've got Adam and Anna Lowe.
We don't know which one that is yet then. Gracie Simpson.
Yep.
Right, Mike S.
Hang on. We've got Mike Sandy.
Only one S. Only one Mike S. Okay. And
We've had him before.
oh, Peter Derbyshire.
Sandy. Yeah. Yeah.
Derbyshire, yes.
Yeah. Hang on. Yeah, we've got Peter.
Sorry, this isn't very exciting for everybody, but we've just got to get everyone into the meeting. And the people who've paid, that is, and not the wilderness wife. Terry somebody, T-E-R-R-Y.
Terry Edser.
Only Terry?
That's the only Terry.
Akira.
Well, we've had them before. That's
What do you mean?
well, there's.
Oh. Melissa.
Hang on.
Well, this is tricky with just Christian
Melissa
names.
Fletcher.
Okay. Maria.
Right, hang on. Maria Rich.
Possibly. Mary Frederica Holmes.
Rich. So Frederica Holmes.
Yes or no?
Hang on. I can't see that. Frederica
Holmes. H-O-L-M-E-S. Down under your fingers.
Yeah. Frederica Holmes. Yeah.
Mary Cuss. C-U-S-S.
Yeah, we've had Mary in before.
What do you mean by that?
She came to the previous meeting.
Oh, don't say that. That's just confusing me. Oh, Caroline Wood. I just want to know if that we've got them tonight.
Okay.
Paula Sedlen.
Sedlen.
We're nearly halfway there, folks. So it's good you can look around other people's living rooms, can't you? I've or kitchen, yeah, kitchen.
distance. And you right, Joe? Can you hear me?
Joe and Chris have gone quiet. Haven't they?
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hello, everyone.
Hi there.
Good evening, Alistair. Sorry.
No trouble at all. Good evening, Stuart. Good to meet you.
And you.
Thank you.
Can you hear me perfectly well?
I can indeed.
Yeah.
Good.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, you.
There's quite a few people who don't appear to have their video going. I mean, it doesn't matter. We don't have to see you, but if you'd like to be seen, then you need to somehow look for the little video camera on your screen and turn your video on. Lovely. Lise. Hello, Maria. We can see you now. Hello. We can't hear you, but that's fine.
Lionel's sitting out there. I think we're okay with letting Lionel in, actually. Sorry.
We're leaving. I thought you wanted me to leave that for the
Yeah,
minute.
I did, but it's okay. I recounted the numbers. We're okay. We're not doing badly. We've got 57 people in the room so far. They're queuing up to come in now. Evening, Andrew. Sorry, I'm not being ignorant. There's quite a few people coming in. And Chris and John Arrowsmith. Evening, Francis.
Hello, Stuart. Thank you.
You're an old hand now.
Pardon?
You're an old hand at it now.
I know, can't believe it. I've been worried about it all day. Whatever it is.
Just another 17 people to let in, to my reckoning. Most of them are sitting on the doorstep knocking. So.
Wow. I make myself big. Oh. Oh.
I'm so sorry about all this, but I've got loads of people joining with just a Christian name. I can't work out where they are on the list.
Okay, can I help you a little bit? Maggie is Maggie Norris, I think we'll find.
Maggie what?
Norris.
Yeah, I mean, I know Maggie.
Yeah.
Yes, then.
Rachel Haller is on the list with Joe Haller, so he's probably using her computer.
Okay, right. Thank you.
Beth,
Paul Harper.
Paul Harper, could you hold Paul?
Oh, no, he's the
once?
reserve, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul Harper's reserve.
Jane McLaughlin. Oh, that'll be
Eric.
That's Eric.
I'll let him in.
We have an Emma King, but I see a Juliet King there.
We've got Emma down here.
Shall I go try it?
Yeah. We've not got a Juliet King though, have we? So,
No. Mary Cuss we've got.
Yeah, Mary came to the trial meeting.
Nuri Fontanelles, I recognise that.
Yeah,
name.
Yuri Fontanelle's Leclason, isn't it? I think.
Yeah, I've got that.
Right, Beth, Chris, James. Don't know who they are.
So Beth is Beth Lass, L-A-S-S.
Okay.
Beth Lass.
Done that. I've got a James and a Chris still outstanding.
Okay, there's James Raphael and James Parker.
Okay, Tracy Simpson. I've got a surname.
Right. Yeah, yes, we've already marked her.
Oh, right. Yes, I've got here. Rachel Haller is actually Joe Haller. Got that. Thank you.
Yeah, lovely.
I've got one here called Over the Moon Events iPhone 6 James. Oh, that's two different Jameses. Well, that's both the
We've
Jameses.
got Parker and Raphael.
Okay, I'll let them both in.
17.
Amy Lawrence.
Yeah.
Lawrence, hang on. Down.
Stu, can you help with Amy Lawrence?
Yeah, she should be on the list. Lawrence. Under L for Lawrence. She's definitely paid for a place. Not on the list. We're at 85 at the moment. 86. be waiting.
I'm going to let Chris in, whoever he
Okay.
is or she is, and
Mm.
we'll find out who they are when they arrive. All right.
Mhm, okay. We ought to get going in a minute, to be honest.
See if you can kick it off a bit.
I've got one message here. Rachel, or is actually Joe Hawley? Yeah. Okay. Okay, we are now. Oh, hello, Eric. Hey.
Hi, Stuart. Can you hear me?
Yeah, fine. Yeah.
Stu, am I letting Paul Harper in?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay. Right, starting to get quiet now.
Oh, Sarah.
Sarah Beanie.
Yeah.
I know that name. We could actually log that.
What you're painting, Michelle?
I don't know what you mean by what you're trying to do.
Hello.
Hello.
We heard somebody then.
Oh, hello. I think I've managed to join.
Yes, we haven't got any video, Sarah.
Oh, I think I've. Oh, there we are. I've
Hello.
turned it on.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, you've got video, we've got sound. Good. We're just waiting for one or two more people to come into the room and then we'll be away. Okay.
Thank you.
Stu, would you like to start and we'll field late
Okay.
comers?
Yeah, sure. Okay. What I'm going to do,
Could I just say something before we start?
Yep.
I'm actually going to just to stop interruptions. I'm going to mute everybody.
Okay.
I can't unmute you. You have, if there is something that you need to say at some point, you have to do it yourselves.
Yeah,
but
okay.
hopefully we'll come. Stu will explain about questions and that in due course.
Yeah. Okay. I've lost an in loving feeling here. Where are we? There we go. Right. Okay, I'm going to close that down. I'm still. Right. Can you hear me, everybody? Could somebody put a thumb up? Yeah.
Hello. I can't hear you. Hello.
Stuart, you've been muted.
I couldn't hear the video either.
I can't hear it either.
There's no sound on that. That'll be the reason for that. Okay. Right. Sorry, yeah. Okay, that was just while I was going to start talking, but basically, a couple of things. If you, in the top right-hand corner of your screens, you'll have a little square marked view. If you turn that to speaker view, you'll have a much better experience. Okay. Yeah, sorry, that's it. You're all muted, or should be. If you could keep yourselves muted, that'd be great. Yeah.
Stu, I'm sorry, I've muted you by mistake.
He can't hear you.
Yes, you can. Stu, you're muted. Thank you.
Chris keeps muting me. Sorry about that. Right.
Well, when I mute all, of course, it mutes you, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't realise that.
Yeah. Okay.
I mute people separately.
Right. Right. Here we go. Right. Good evening, everybody. Sorry it took so long to get everybody in, but it's a long old process. There are 96 people, something like that. We'll carry on with it now. A couple of things. We are being recorded, so if anybody misses a session, then we can always send you out a copy of the video, but sending out 96 copies is going to be a little bit problematical. But 2 people are missing this session. We'll try and take questions as the session goes on. If you're on a PC, just by depressing the space bar, you will unmute yourself temporarily while you're holding it down, okay? So let's see, Ian, Floyd, could you try that a sec? Just press your space bar and say something.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep, that works, okay. And then when you let go of the space bar, you're muted again. It's only because in meetings like this, where you've got 96 people, it tends to be a lot of background noise and, you know, dogs barking and doors slamming and that sort of thing, sort of hold things up. Okay, just to show you how banal and how juvenile I am, let's get going. Right, the whole point of that is it's back to school for all of us. But what I'd like to do to start with is tell you who we are. You've already met Joe and Chris King, but if I unshare my screen just for a second, if you two could talk, Joe and Chris, then that will introduce Joe and Chris. Nope.
Hi there.
Cool.
Hello.
That's it.
Hello.
Joe
This
and
is
Chris,
us.
husband and wife. Joe will be sharing the sessions with me. And we've also got, that's Joe, sorry. And also lurking in the background, we've got Eric McLaughlin, who is the chairman of Somerton Beekeepers now. Can you speak to us, Eric? Nope.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
There we go.
Yeah.
That's Eric, our
Welcome to the
chairman of
course. I hope you all
Somerton.
enjoy it.
And last but not least, to show themselves on the golden screen, is silver screen even, is Jackie Mosdale, who is president of Somerton Beekeepers. You there, Jackie?
Hi, everybody, and welcome and enjoy the course.
There we go. That's them, with the exception of one person, and that's me. And I'm Stuart Gould. I used to be chairman of Somerton Beekeepers, but they threw me out. No, we only do a 3-year term, and then somebody else takes over. But I've now gone to the position of chairman of Somerset Beekeepers for the best possible reason. Nobody else wants the job. Okay, so put things in perspective for you. The British Beekeepers Association covers the whole country, and basically it's an association run by its members for its members, and everything's done on a totally voluntary basis. And there's more than 25 now, it's about 26,000 members of the British Beekeepers Association. Those are split into regional associations basically across county lines, not county lines, shouldn't say those sort of things, but in county lumps, with the exception of places like Greater Manchester and obviously places like Jersey and Guernsey. And then we have Somerset Beekeepers, which has now, I think, fast approaching 1,000 members. And we are one of the 12 divisions of Somerset Beekeepers, and we have nearly a quarter of the total membership of Somerset. So we're quite a big division of Somerset. The total cost of the fee, £30, includes associate membership of Somerset Beekeepers if you are living in Somerset. There isn't much we can do for you if you're living outside of Somerset, but find your local Beekeepers Association and you can join them. That £30 includes a copy of Haynes Bee Manual, unless you were a little bit slow off the stocks, and we've unfortunately had placed the order with Haynes, and they've arrived and all but 6 have been distributed. But so we reduced the price of the course by what we pay for the books, and brought it down to £18. So you're getting a pretty good deal at £18 for 6 sessions. There's the Haynes Bee Manual. As I say, it's now £25. So also, I'm sorry, the reason I'm hesitating is Somerton Beekeepers do a newsletter 11 months of the year. We don't do one in January, but we do all the other months. And I think I'm okay. Eric, tell me off as chairman if I'm wrong, but if we let our participants have a copy of the Somerton Bee newsletter for this coming year, it keeps you up to date with the events that we're putting on, and not necessarily beekeeping tips, but when you've got bees, I would advise you to take out full membership of your local association, because that will also make you a member of the British Beekeepers Association, and you'll get a monthly magazine called the BBKA News, which does have topical tips on what to do this month in the apiary. As I say, you can attend all our events and demonstrations if and when we put them on. And once a year, we have tried to visit Buckfast Abbey, which is a sort of centre of beekeeping excellence in the UK. And the lady on the left is Claire Densley, who looks after the bees at Buckfast Abbey. And this was a trip I actually went down with the guy on the right to meet Claire, because he wanted to meet Claire and Claire wanted to meet him. He's Stuart Anderson, an Australian who invented the flow hive, which is known to a lot of people. It basically is conventional beekeeping in the bottom box, but the top box, you simply put in a handle, the one that's on the desk, and twist it, and lo and behold, honey comes out, which is why it's called a flow hive. It's a wonderful invention, and Stuart Anderson is one of the nicest guys you'll ever wish to meet. But in my humble opinion, it's not well suited to the British climate. What we'll also do is guide you towards suppliers. In session 3, we'll send out notes along with the notes. We'll send out a whole list of beekeeping equipment suppliers in the UK. We recommend some, but I think it's only right that I say we can't really recommend any of them and say absolutely that they are the best thing since sliced bread, but we will try to guide you in the right direction. This won't happen this year, but it's worth bearing in mind every March, towards the end of March, which is tacitly the beginning of the beekeeping season, Taunton beekeepers hold an auction of second-hand equipment. Now, some years you can pick up some absolute bargains, and other years it's a load of rubbish. But when it's bargains, then it's really worth going. Second-hand equipment is perfectly fine most of the time. And if provided there's somebody with a bit of experience there to guide you through it, you can get beekeeping equipment at very reasonable prices. The other thing we'll try to do, but again, it's try, we'll try and get bees for you. Now, bees are dependent very much on the weather, and swarming is something that they do most years in abundance. Some years there's more than others. Last year, there was a superabundance of swarms because we had a very hot spring. And normally swarms start late April, early May. The first one I heard of last year was the 7th of April, which is extremely early. The other thing we'll try to do, a little bit difficult out of county, but we will try to find you a mentor. That's somebody to lean over your shoulder and tell you where you're going wrong. I think by sort of April, which is the best time to get your bees, April, May, we might be able to meet in small groups again. So there's just a vague chance that you may be able to have a mentor, somebody to come to your bees, or you can go to their bees and have a look with them at opening up a hive and inspecting the colonies. This is for purely good reasons for yourself. This is not for us. If you take out full membership of your association, you will get, apart from anything else, public liability insurance to the tune of £10 million. So you, as Joe, when Joe does this session, he'll say you've got to do something pretty stupid to rack up a £10 million legal fee, but also £10 million for product liability. So that means if you poison somebody with your honey, at least you'll get defence to the extent of £10 million, and that's a lot of money. It will also give you something called bee diseases insurance, which is very, very useful. It's not totally comprehensive, the bee diseases insurance, but bees are a lot easier to get hold of than you'd think. Finding the first one might be a bit problematical, but they're like ginger beer plants. When I was a kid, they multiply. That's what they do. They multiply by division, and so they are bountiful in May, particularly. Hopefully, and this is very hopeful, we will have practical sessions in late spring, but I'm not going to place a bet on that. That's dependent on all sorts of things. The COVID number of infections is coming down, but the deaths are still rising, so we have to be very wary of that. But if possible, for Somerton members, or people in the Somerton area, we will be running practical courses if we can. Those in other divisions, Southeast Division, Bruton, Castle Carey, that direction, will also try and have practical sessions. And Central, based on Shepton Mallet, will also, Paul Harper, who's in the room, is a member of Central, and they will also have practicals if they can. Out of county, I'm afraid there isn't much we can do to help you. You need to contact your county association. Okay, this first session is to give you an overall picture of what beekeeping is all about. And I thought I'd make something move just to something different than just pictures. Those are my hands, and those are my bees. It's just to prove to you that bees don't just rush out and sting you. I wear very thin latex gloves when I'm inspecting, and I'm looking for the queen, and there she is there. Okay, and just in this short video, I'm going to mark the queen. We put a little cage over her called a crown of thorns with cotton threads, and we use a pen it's what they use in restaurants for writing menus on blackboards, an acrylic pen, and we just mark her on the thorax. Her daughters are getting a little bit agitated, but she's fine. She's just being held in position, and off she wanders. There you go. That's the queen. Right. This is the preface to a book, an alternative book other than the Haynes Bee Manual, called the British Beekeeping Association's Guide to Beekeeping by Ivor Davis, who lives over in Clevedon, and he puts these things forward. Are you prepared to learn how to manage bees properly, which is very important, the emphasis on proper. And sorry, I've got something come up on my screen. Not going, oh, here we go. Will there be enough forage for your bees to prosper? Now, forage is what they collect and take back to the hive, pollen and nectar, and water come to that. And if you are in the middle of Exmoor, there's only one time really in the year when there is anything for the bees. If you're in a rural, generally rural environment, there's hedgerows and they can get enough food from hedgerows. They're brambles, there's hazel catkins, there's blackthorn, there's all that kind of thing. The best place to be is on the edge of a village, really, where there's gardens and the countryside to feed your bees. The next question, could your bees become a nuisance to your neighbours? It's really worth considering knocking on the door and saying, look, I'm thinking of having bees, are you okay? And it's amazing how a £1 jar of honey placates even the strongest of arguments against them. The one thing you really need to do is look after them on a regular basis. You don't have to go up there and attend them every day. At the height of the season, it's normally once a week, no more than that. There are times in swarming times in May when you might have to do a bit more than that, but it's normally once a week. And in the winter now, it's less than that. Stores are what the bees bring and put into the hive. That's the nectar which they convert to honey. And particularly in June, and there's a thing called the June gap, where there are very few flowers about. And last year it was very bad because it was very wet in June. Your bees can get hungry, and so you may need to feed them, excuse me. And in the winter, you mustn't have taken so much away from them that they can't survive through the winter. But in these days, when it's quite warm in the winter, we are finding that we have to feed them because they go out looking for food that isn't there and use up their stores. Collecting swarms, it's not for the faint-hearted, but it's actually very peaceful episode. It's swarming bees are very mild and don't cause too many problems at all. So you will be required, when people find out that you're keeping bees and there's a swarm in your area, to go and collect them. And later sessions will show you roughly how that's done. That's a strange one. You must be very well aware that bees do sting. It's not as frequent as you'd think. I do know people who go through several seasons without getting stung at all. I wear very thin gloves. One of the main reasons I get stung is because I put my finger on a bee. You know, if that's the case, then they do react. They turn around and stick their stings into you. But it doesn't happen on a regular basis. This is very important. It's becoming more important. Clean clothing is essential because you can transfer disease from one hive to another, especially if you've got obviously more than one hive, because the bees get viruses, and we all know an awful lot more about viruses than we did a year ago. They're very easy to transmit. They're very hard to get rid of. And bees also get bacterial complaints and a couple of things called microsporidians and fungal complaints. But again, that's later on. Session 5, we'll talk all about that. But the best way around it is to use clean gloves and wash your kit and equipment on a regular basis. We tend to have a bucket of soda solution, and this thing, can you see me on your screens up in the corner? This is called a hive tool, and I keep a bucket of soda water and I just chuck my hive tool in into the soda solution. This one will become very apparent to you very quickly. As soon as people find out you've got bees, they will start asking you all the questions under the sun, because you are the authority on beekeeping in your vicinity. And yeah, I mean, I still get people asking me all sorts of questions about bees all the time. And that was from the BBK Guide to Beekeeping by Ivor Davis, but they are very pertinent questions. Right, the sessions are this one, which is a general introduction to bees and beekeeping. And that's how people used to dress back in the 19th century, just a veil, nothing else. And in session 2, which Joe King will be running, we'll be talking about the bees. That's the different bees in the hive, and also the life cycle of the bee and the life cycle of the colony, and also a bit of basic anatomy. And believe me, it is not complicated, but it will show you what a bee is all about and basically how it works. I did in our practice sessions hold this up. I'll unshare my screen in a sec. If you want to become a real anorak, you can go out and buy that, which is an excellent book on honeybee anatomy and biology, but it will boggle your mind at the beginning. I would wait until you've got a bit more experience. I'm trying to use both my mouse and my keys on my keyboard. Right, third session we'll be talking about equipment, hives, because there are a vast variety of hives. The one in the picture is a British National, which is pretty much standard in the UK. It's the most common hive The beauty of that is if you're buying new equipment, it's the most simple equipment to get hold of. There's lots of it available, and it's pretty much the most economic of the hives. There are some which are cheaper, but they tend to have problems. Session 4, Joe will be talking about handling the bees, opening up the hives, how to do it, and that thing on the right is a smoker, and lighting the smoker is one of the most difficult practical skills to master. If you can light your smoker, you've got it licked, believe me. And there's a gentleman. I'm actually obscure. Oh, he's obscured by my captions here. He's wearing some very thick leather gloves, and I would actually suggest you don't buy leather gloves because they're very difficult to keep clean. There are lots of disposable gloves and thicker nitrile, I think, or latex. There are different types. Some people are allergic to latex, so there are alternatives available. And session 5, now I'll be doing session 5, and the reason for that is that Joe claims to be a member of Pilton Parish Council, and also claims that the Parish Council meetings always held on the Wednesday that we have this session, and so I end up having to do it. It's the miserable session. It used to be the last session, but when I started doing these, I put it at session 5 rather than session 6. We didn't have any suicides, but I think it came a bit close on a couple of occasions. And the final session is the optimistic one, which is what you get back for all your hard work at the end of the day. Bees will eventually pay you back for your endeavors and the money you've shelled out on buying hives and buying them and buying suits for yourself. So there you go, that's the sessions. There's some of my honey. And for those relatively nearby, I live in Ditchett, which is quite close to Castle Kerry. It's the village with all the racehorses. We have a racing stable here. I've said practical sessions to follow, but as I said earlier, that's all in the lap of the gods. So here we go. The honeybee, which is what we're interested in. We're going to talk about that and what beekeeping is. That's nobody I know. I just found the photograph on the net, but I'd like to have thought he was my grandfather, but he's nothing like my grandfather. Why we keep bees, and I've got a sneaking suspicion that photograph might have been photoshopped. How much time it'll take, and I think if you own a clock like that, you've gone a bit too far with your beekeeping, but taking it too much to heart. It's okay to wear socks with bees on, but I think that's a step too far. How much it's going to cost you, and stings. First of all, this is really basic, and excuse me if I appear to be talking down to you, but we have people who have absolutely no knowledge of bees at all. Next session, it will get a little bit more involved, believe me. It is an insect, as everybody knows. It's therefore got a head, thorax, abdomen, and 6 legs. 6 legs is the big determining factor. It's within the order Hymenoptera, which means clear wings, which also includes sawflies, ants, bees, and wasps. And it's in the lesser family of Apidae, which is all the bees. Right, a little bit of a recognition chart for you. Whenever I do this, I tend to forget one of these, and I'll try not to forget it this evening. This one here is the one I forget. It's the one that's just come in. Right, all I want you to do, I don't sort of talk to me on this, but just try and work out how many of these are actually bees. And the reason the last one flew in when it did is because it should get special attention, but not as a bee, okay? Right, you had a look, and sort of reach some conclusions? There's a few bees there, aren't there? Okay, right. Starting at the top left, that is a European hornet. Okay, they're lovely beasts. They're calm and docile. They will take the occasional bee, but they're not what I would call a danger. I get them in my wasp traps all the time, and I put a stick in and they crawl on the stick and I let them go. They are predominantly chestnut and yellow at the front end, and the abdomen tends to look a bit like a large wasp. Okay, talking of which, that's a wasp, just your common or garden wasp. And you'll see in the later sessions, they can do incredible damage to a hive of bees. But down here, we've got a hoverfly pretending to be a wasp. It's not a wasp at all, it's a hoverfly. And this hoverfly is pretending to be a honeybee. This one, I think, is looking for a part in Doctor Who. I don't know, again, it's a fly. And this one, I love these. This is a bee fly. And it looks a little bit like a bee, but it's got this great big lance sticking out the front. And they tend to hover about a foot away from your head looking at you. And if you move your head, they'll move with you. But they're totally harmless, so nothing to worry about. And what else have we got? Oh, right. Down here is one of the two bees. This is a buff-tailed bumblebee. So what's that up at the top right-hand corner? That is a fly pretending to be a bumblebee. Its Latin name is Volucella bombilans. Bombilans is the Latin bit that says it's bumblebee, or rather referring to bumblebees. So that's not a bee, but that is. So we've got one. And the easy way to tell is you can see that the bumblebee has two pairs of wings, whereas the flies have only one pair of wings. And if you look at that one, it's only got one pair of wings, as has that one. That leaves us with this fella here. And I'll tell you, that is a bee. So we've got two bees. And this one I'll come back to in a minute. And this one, I didn't know what these were till about 2-3 years ago. This isn't a wasp. It isn't a hornet. It isn't a bee. It's a moth. It's a lunar clear wing moth. And it's often mistaken for hornets. They're not very common, but they are absolutely beautiful creatures. But the one at the top is, sorry, those are the two bees, those two. And the one at the top, this is a better picture. This picture was taken in Roscoff in northern France about 2-3 years ago. This is what we call the Asian hornet, but there's a lot of alarm and he's gone now, but fake news around these things. This is not the giant Asian killer hornet that they're experiencing on the west coast of the United States. There are about 10, 12 different species of hornets in Asia that all get called Asian hornets. This is, sorry with all the Latin names, but this is Vespa, which means wasp or hornet. They're very similar. Velutina nigrithorax. It's got a black thorax, and that's the giveaway. It's predominantly black. You don't see that yellow band very often. What you see is something black with an orange band at the rear of its abdomen. These arrived in France in 2004 in a consignment of garden pottery from China. And they are now all over Western Europe and up to Belgium. And we've had a few incursions into the UK. So not good news. And again, in session 5, we'll tell you all about them. Right, we've done that then. So you know what a honeybee should look like now, although I've not shown you one. Which one's the honeybee? This one or this one? I told you about, no, I didn't, the big eyes on a bee, on a fly. They tend to have a flat back to them and they cover most of the face. So that is a fly pretending to be the honeybee. This one is a honeybee. But don't worry, this is a prime example. This is a very well-known American beekeeping book with a picture of a fly on the front. It's not a bee at all. So, you know, as I say, even the experts get it wrong. There are over 20,000 species of bees in the world, and we've got 270 different species in the UK. Most of those are what we call solitary bees, and I'll explain what solitary bees are in a minute. There are 240 plus species of those. Then we have bumblebees. I can't remember what it's called, making the numbers big. You know, when you've got the solitary bees, there's more of them than the bumblebees. But there are about 28 species. I say about because we had a new species of bumblebee arrive in the UK in the late 90s, and another one's been reintroduced. So it does fluctuate slightly. But the important thing is that there's only one species of honeybee, and that's our European honeybee, Apis mellifera mellifera. They develop from wasps, and wasps are primarily carnivores. This one is devouring one of my bees. It's taken the legs off. It's going to remove the head and the abdomen. All it's after is the thorax, which contains protein, which it'll take back to its nest. That's why we don't like them very much, beekeepers. As true flowers develop, they got a taste for nectar and developed longer tongues so that they could get into the flower to collect the nectar. And they became bees as opposed to wasps, although they're both what we call social insects. And importantly, they became vegans. Bees don't eat anything other than pollen and nectar. Those are the only two things they eat at all, totally vegetarian or vegan. Solitary bees, I said there's over 240 species. They live on their own. They hatch from an egg, they go out, they get mated, and the females then go and lay eggs in a site of their choosing. It could be a hole in a wall, it could be a hole in the ground, it could be in your bug box. They then, behind each bit of food, they put some wadding, and then another egg, some food, and some wadding. And at the end of the season, all the adult bees die, leaving only the eggs to go through the winter and come out the next year and hatch and start a whole new generation. And there's a tube with a larva in it, which is on the point of pupating. And pupating is the bee equivalent of making a chrysalis. And it will then turn into a pupa or chrysalis, and it will hatch as an adult bee in the spring. But as they're laid in a tube, the first egg to get laid is the last one out because it's behind all its siblings. So it don't get laid first. And there are several varieties, and one of my favorites is the leafcutter bee, and this is what they do to your honeysuckle. And this little fella, and you can hear it munching, this may not end well. I think this is where the expression biting off more than you can chew comes from. Oh, he fell down. Right, bumblebees. This is a white-tailed bumblebee, one of the quite common species in the UK. They also were known as humblebees, and they had one other name that somebody seems to have borrowed. And that's an Old English name for bumblebees, Dumbledores. J.K. Rowling's pinched that name. And they live in colonies of about 150 to 200. And there is a queen who's lived through the winter. She got fertilized at the the previous year. She lives through the winter, and in the early spring, she'll come out and start a new colony. They feed on nectar and nectar and pollen like honeybees, except they don't have the capability of turning that nectar into honey. They eat the nectar fresh. And because they can't store it, the colony can't survive over the winter. And at the end of the year, you've guessed it, they all die except for the queen. Sorry, including the queen, the old queen, but new queens have been made which live through the winter and start a whole new generation. And there's a bumblebee's nest. This is the queen. And some of these are larval cups that they've got larvae in them, but these have got nectar in. And there will be some with pollen in as well. And what the queen bumblebee does, she lays eggs and then she broods the first few under her chest, rather like a broody hen. And when they've hatched and become adult bees, they set about helping her build the nest. Honeybees, worldwide, there are only 9 species, 9 varieties. They live in colonies of about 50,000. Our European honeybee does anyway. And normally there's only one queen in the hive. You can have a daughter living in harmony with her mother for a short period of time, but it doesn't end well. And you'll get about 200 drones or males, and they're there for one reason only. They don't do any work. They simply fertilize new queens, and they get very short shrift. At the end of the year, they're kicked out of the hive to die, and they make a whole new generation of drones the following year. The rest are sterile workers, and they're probably the only bees you've seen. You'd be very lucky if you've seen a drone bee or a queen bee, unless you've seen a swarm or you've got bees yourself. And of the other 8 varieties, they all live in Asia, or they're all from Asia. And the largest honeybee is this one on the left. That's Apis dorsata, which is quite enormous. They famously nest on the Taj Mahal and the Agra Fort, which is just down the road. And this is Apis florea, the smallest honeybee. And I just happened to catch the 2 of them on a carnation in a hotel in Delhi I was staying in about 7 or 8 years ago. But you can see the vast difference. But they both make and store honey. But in Asia, a lot of honeybees nest in the open. They don't live in tree trunks or holes in walls or anything like that, because it's so warm. They tend to live in the open air, hanging from tree branches or the underside of overhanging buildings. This is our European honeybee, Apis mellifera, and she is carrying a load of pollen on her back legs, and she actually got her proboscis out, so she's also looking for a bit of a meal out of that flower for herself. And this is one of my bees on some borage. You can see her wings are very tattered. They simply work themselves to death, and their wings wear out. I think Joe was telling me they've got about 2,500 to 3,000 miles in their wings, something like that. So what is beekeeping? This is an American photograph. I'm sorry, I was just looking at the equipment. Those are American Langstroth hives, and a lot of Americans wear these veils over the top of hats. Get back. Is it a science? It's getting more scientific as we progress. New things are being found out all the time. But Einstein famously said that if the bees die, we die 4 years later. But I think it'd be truer to say that if we didn't look after them, they would die out. I'm sorry, I like Gustav Klimt. Is it an art? Yes, there is a lot of artistry to it, sort of guessing, if you like, what the bees are going to do. You can also work out what they're going to do a lot of the time, but they will surprise you. Is it a craft? Sorry about that. That's the only thing I could think of. And the answer is really, it's bit of all three, and that's a bit of George Rennie Mackintosh, so that's arts and craft. Excuse me. So yeah, it is a bit of a craft. Experience will help you. You will learn all the time. And I think the day you stop learning is the day you give up beekeeping. I'm still learning. I know Joe is, and Jackie and Eric. We learn something every day. And in fact, Jackie said to me this morning on the phone that one of the reasons she's sitting in is that these things give her a reminder of something she may have not forgotten, but put to one side for a long time. And it's true for me. And I put the PowerPoints together, but I keep thinking, oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's becoming more scientific, as I said. Is it frustrating? Yes, it is. When bees start doing this, you wonder what on earth is going on. And this could be swarming, or it could be just a very hot day. They will come out and sit on the front porch if it is very hot. Fascinating? Yes, very. These photographs, or this one was taken by a French photographer called Eric Tourneret. And if you want to have a look at his photographs, I think he calls himself the bee photographer. And he's really worth having a look at his work. There's some excellent photographs there. Unpredictable? Yeah. There's a swarm of bees on the front end of a bicycle. And they will stop and have a rest sometimes, bees, when they're swarming, and they'll just group and regroup, make sure they've got the queen with them, and then on they'll go. Absorbing? Yeah. It never ceases to amaze me. I've been keeping bees for 12, 13 years. Joe's been keeping bees for 40 years. Eric, I think 20 or so years, and Jackie, 25. Nod your head, Jackie. I'm just about to see you. About 25, yeah, 30, 40. Okay, for a long time. It can be habit forming. This is a Chinese site where they've gone vertical. This was actually in the Guardian, I think. These are not conventional British hives. Each country has its own idea of what a hive should look like. But that, you've got to have some pretty good forage in the area to feed that lot and to get a return on them. And it's simple, like riding a bike. It is everything you learn, you'll think, yeah, that's right. That's, yeah, of course that makes sense. But the only problem is there's rather a lot of it, an awful lot of facts to learn. But truly speaking, you're trying to get the optimum results from a bee colony, not maximum results, optimum. If you can get maximum results, you can get all the honey you could ever want out of one hive, but to the detriment of the bees. The bees are the most important thing in my book, and honey, I don't actually particularly like extracting it, but it's lovely when the village shop phones you up and says, could I have another £50, please? And you think that's going to be worth having. So once it's in the jar, it all becomes worthwhile. You're trying to ensure that the colony is healthy and the continuity of that colony. If bees swarm, they basically split in two. So every time they swarm, you're losing half your workforce and they have to build up again. Harvesting honey and other things, yep, just when I mentioned that. You're ensuring pollination in the area. You can get a pollination contract with certain apple orchards. I've got friends who've got bees in apple orchards down in Somerset, and they get paid for putting the hives there. I'm not sure what the going rate is now, but I know that West Bradley orchards always want bees there. They put them in the middle of sunflowers as well for the very same reason. They will pollinate the sunflowers. This is quite an important thing, I think. One, Joe loves this because he used to be a dentist, and that's a mean set of choppers she's got there. But 1 in every 3 mouthfuls of food we eat is dependent on pollination, not just by bees, because there are loads and loads of insect pollinators. Bats pollinate plants, so do moths, and certain mice will also go up and have a nibble of the flowers and inadvertently pollinate as they do it. But one in every 3 mouthfuls of food we eat is dependent on pollination. Interestingly, the bun, the wheat is wind pollinated, the tomato is pollinated by bumblebees, so there is some truth in that picture. There are several crises threatening the world's bees at the moment, the most important of which is a mite, which came into the UK in 1990 and is in pretty much every single hive in the UK these days, called Varroa. And we treat for that. And again, sorry, at this end of the sessions, I'll be saying quite a lot, but we'll talk about that later in the sessions, but we do talk about pests and diseases later on. I don't do it primarily for the honey, believe me. As I say, it's nice. I get around 300 pounds of honey a year, which wouldn't keep me, but it's not bad from 6 working hives. So about 50 pounds a hive, which is a pretty good average. They have amazing prowess as pollinators, as I said. It's a very green thing to do. And you can get beeswax and other products from the hive as well, which will more than cover your costs. Not the first year. There is a lot of money goes out the first year, but in subsequent years, you can regain your money quite easily. And as I said earlier, they fascinate the hell out of me. And one of the main reasons that I keeping bees is this, the Living Planet report. It's published every 2 years. So there was one in 2016 and one in 2018, and the latest one came out last year. And this is one of the facts that keeps coming back to me. We've lost 60% of all vertebrates in the last 50 years. I mean, that's worse now, 6 years later than 2014, but that's an incredible loss. You don't need David Attenborough to tell you that things are bad. They are bad. And that's quite frightening, I think. As is that. Okay, what I'm going to do, is there anybody who wants to ask any questions yet? No, everybody's very quiet. If you could depress your space bar. No, okay, I'll poddle on. There are various diseases that the bees get. This is called deformed wing virus, which is caused by that Varroa mite. And obviously that bee's not going to fly, therefore it can't fend for itself. Chris, there's somebody wanting to come in. Sorry about that. I have a Frenchman in my throat. And honeybees.
Just answering a chat as well.
Sorry. Sorry, Chris was saying something. Yeah, bees originally lived in tree trunks, are European honeybees. And if we do ever get to go down to Buckfastleigh, they have a feral colony living in a tree halfway between their building and the hives, which is useful to see and very interesting. They don't survive as long as they should do, but they will change places. Their colony will be there, and then after about 5 years, another colony will come along and replace it. And as I said, if we didn't keep them, they would decrease even more drastically. There are very few true wild colonies left anymore. What's pollination about? It's the passing of the male seed, pollen, to another flower or the female part of the same flower. It can be done by wind, but we're interested in pollinating insects. So this product, which is grown widely over the United States, maize, and there's quite a bit of it here, is wind pollinated. And bees are not the slightest bit interested in it. One of the reasons they're not interested in it is because the flowers aren't pretty. And that's a cunning thing that plants do. They'll produce flowers which are large and bright and tend to be perfumed. and that will attract the bees. That's something worth considering. They don't need the nectar. They produce it purely for one reason, and that's to attract pollinators. There is no other reason for it whatsoever. And that's, sorry, I like bees flying towards borage. That bee has got its proboscis out and it's going for nectar. It's not collected any pollen on its rear legs. So we know it's going to that flower for nectar. And it will have to go right up in there to get the nectar. The pollen is here on these purple stamen. And it's easy to remember which is the male part of the flower, stamen, okay, and stigma. Stigma is the female part, stamen are the male parts. So it will fly into there, it will put its proboscis up into here, and it will accidentally get pollen stuck to the hairs on its body, and it will transport them away to another plant. So this is how it works. The anthers are on the ends of the stamen, and this is the stigma, this is the female part, and down here at the bottom of the stigma is the ovary containing the ovule, or the female, the egg. And down here are the nectaries. This is where the nectar is produced. And in order for the bee to get the nectar, it has to go past, this took hours to make this animation, sorry, minutes. It has to go past the pollen, and it picks up pollen and it flies away to another flower. And when it comes back, or another bee comes back, it might deposit a bit of pollen up here on its way down to the nectaries. That pollen will grow a tail, which will grow down the stigma and fertilize the ovule. Now, this is an orange flower, but if this was a white flower, apple blossom, say, the ovary here that contains the ovule will grow and swell and become the apple. And on the end of the apple, you'll see the remnants of the stigma. Sorry, yes, the stigma. And I'll show you in a minute with some photographs. But that's how it happens. That's how all flowers develop new plants or regenerate. So all it is the passing of pollen from the male part to the female part of another or the same flower. And you can see, this is blackthorn. You can see all the stamen with the pollen on the end. And this one, you can actually see a stigma sticking up. And it's even better on this photograph from the top. There's the stigma, and the pollen will land on that and go down the tube. These are the stamen with the anthers on the end and the pollen. And down at the bottom, there will be the startings of a sloe. So it's as simple as that, okay? That's what it's all about. And there's a bee on an apple blossom, and you can see it's rubbing up against the pollen, but it is actually just about makeup. It's got pollen on its rear leg there. So it's after pollen, it's not gone down into the base for the nectar. But I was saying earlier, that's the end of the stigma, and the other end is the stalk of the apple is still attached to the tree where it was the stem of the blossom. And that's a blackberry or bramble flower. This has got hundreds of anthers and stamen, but it's also got multiple stigmas. And that's simply because each one of those stigmas will be the little berry on a blackberry. Blackberries are made up of loads of things called druplets. And each one of those is a single druplet that makes up the amalgam, which is the blackberry. There we go. You can see the remnants of these stigmas there on the ends of the little druplets. There's somebody in the waiting room, Chris. Right, and lavender. Bees love lavender. This bee is collecting lavender from, nectar from a lavender plant. You can tell it's after nectar because it's got its proboscis out, and again, nothing on its rear leg in the pollen baskets there. And this is Somerset Lavender Farm near Beckington in Somerset, and they do have hives there. Don't worry about hives looking scruffy. If you had to stand outside 365 days a year, you'd probably look a little bit scruffy too. The reason that we feel so badly about honeybees is that in certain parts of the world, they've actually done their best to get rid of their honeybee populations by using so many pesticides and herbicides and all sorts of other things. Antibiotics come into this as well along the chain. And they've got a big problem. In the western provinces of China, they have virtually eradicated the honeybees, and they have to now pollinate their bees by hand. And each one of those has got a little egg cup and a pollen brush, and taking the pollen, I'm not sure whether it's a lady or a man, but taking the pollen from the nectar, from the blossom, and putting it into the bowl, and then getting some more and putting it back. So using that pollen to pollinate the flowers, but collecting more at the same time. And they do the whole tree by hand. This has got a little bit mixed up here, but basically honey is a carbohydrate, and it's food for us and for the bees, but it's the carbohydrate part of their diet. We also get beeswax from the hive, but they use that for storage to put the honey in, but also pollen. They store pollen in beeswax comb, and they also raise their young in cells in the beeswax comb. They also collect stuff called propolis, which is the sap and resins from trees, which they use as a glue and a general gap filler. But it's got a big market. Medicinally, it is antibacterial. It will help cure skin problems, and a lot of people use them for mouth ulcers. Mouth ulcers. I don't think mice get ulcers, but mouth ulcers. And we live very close to Glastonbury, so you can sell as much of it as you can harvest, basically. They cry out for it there. In better times, I buy medicinal alcohol in France at 70%, 70 degrees proof rather, and I add propolis to it. It dissolves the propolis. I strain it through a kitchen tissue and put it in little pipette bottles like this. And the other thing that's nice about it is it smells nice, so it's useful to have. And pollen, for us, it's a health food. For the bees, it's a protein-based food which is used to feed the larvae. They are fed predominantly protein to make them grow, because the carbohydrate won't make them grow, but the pollen, the protein, will. Another one is royal jelly. Now, this, if you've not seen inside a beehive before, this won't be easy to appreciate. But these are normal cells in a beehive. These are cells they're using to make queens, and that's a larvae which will turn into a queen and sit surrounded by royal jelly. And this is the food that it swims in and eats. And the royal jelly is a supercharged food which will turn a normal worker bee into a fertile queen bee. And that's how bees are made, by super feeding them, basically. Another product of the hive is bees. You can sell bees. And a very well-known local beekeeper called Gerald Fisher said, "Stuart, you'll make more money out of selling bees than you will out of selling honey." So I think there's a lot of truth in that. We've got somebody who wants to come in. Chris, gone. Yeah, right. Yes, bees, a small nucleus colony of bees from a national supplier will cost you anything up to £250. Buy locally, in my opinion, it's less expensive, and If you have a problem, then you can go back to the person you bought it from and say, there's something wrong with this colony of bees, rather than having to phone up the largest supplier who are in Northamptonshire and say, there's something wrong with these bees. And they'll say, well, you'll have to get them back to us. And getting them back to Northampton is just a little bit difficult. How much time will it take? They don't need feeding daily. It's seldom you feed them. You don't have to shut them up at the end of the day. You don't have to take them for walks either. In the winter, very little time. What you've got to do is make sure the entrances of the hives are clear, especially if we have snow. They haven't been blown over by the winds. I put a concrete block on the top in the winter. The concrete block gets saturated and increases in weight, and the chances of it being blown over or knocked over by somebody or something is reduced to the nth degree. Maybe a few minor problems, but you don't really open up the hive. There's probably only one occasion during the winter you open up the hives, and that's just to treat them for varroa mites. You can make up some new frames and tidy your equipment for the coming season. That's always a good thing to do. I always say that. Do I ever get around to it? Not very often. I tend to be rushing around in the spring. In the spring, you will spend more time. Early spring when the dats are out, not so much maybe, but as spring progresses, and blackthorn is the big signal. When blackthorn comes out and all the hedgerows turn white, then the bees will be able to collect nectar. And closely followed by dandelions, which are a very good source of food for the bees and for making honey. But you do have to ensure that they've got enough food. The other thing in the spring, when you inspect for the first time, end of March, beginning of April, is to check the queen that she's okay, she's laying eggs, and that the colony is building up, because it will expand. It's slimmed right down over the winter, and it will start to build up again in the spring. In the summer or early summer, especially when swarming takes place, and I include May in that, you could be very busy. You need to check your hives every 7 to 8 days, and Joe will explain why that's important next week. That 7 days is of vital importance, and it could take you up to an hour and a half a week per hive at the busiest time. You'll be juggling of bees and frames and hives. You could be moving them around. If you've only got one hive, it's not too much of a problem, but the ideal number is 2. If you have a problem in one hive, you can use the other hive to sort the problem out. You can borrow frames of eggs if you lose the queen, for instance, and put a frame of eggs in the problem hive, and they will raise a new queen for you, that sort of thing. One hive, I had a girl this year who lives in Lamia, which is not far from here, who had a really bad problem, disease problem with her bees. Not her fault, but the whole colony died out, and she didn't have another colony, and so she had to start all over again. In autumn, and we're very pessimistic in beekeeping, autumn starts mid-August. Once you've collected the honey at the beginning of August, you're starting to prepare to close down for winter. And winter, as I say, and autumn start August, September for beekeepers. And you're back down to an hour a week per hive. Feeding and treating is what you're doing in the autumn. When there's no honey, you can treat the bees and you won't taint the honey. That's the most important thing. There's one product you can treat when the honey's on, but there's only one, and it won't taint the honey, but all other treatments will. Right, how much will it cost? I hope you're sitting comfortably. With new equipment, and I stress new equipment, this is the worst possible option, buying everything new. Or you could buy secondhand. those are a bit dilapidated, but they look as though they are retrievable with a rub down, a coat of paint, and a bit of TLC. Will you buy a simple veil? That's okay, provided you tuck that shirt in and wear a pair of gloves. It will work, and a pair of wellies. A jacket, and I wear a jacket quite often with gloves, and again a pair of wellies, or a full suit. And there are big price implications here. A new suit now is about £122 from this manufacturer, BB Wear. We'll come on to that in a bit. Which type of hive? This is a thing called a sun hive, famously seen on Countryfile about 5 years ago when Julia Bradbury was still there. And the natural beekeepers who are keeping this hive said, there's nothing to worry about. And they walked up to the hive and Julia Bradbury got a very bad sting in the eye. So be very careful when you're approaching hives. The problem with this one is inspecting your bees is very difficult. You can't get in to look at individual combs. This is called an African top bar hive or Kenyan top bar hive, and the clue's in the name. It's designed for hot countries. It's not designed for use in the UK. And there are innumerable hive varieties. This photograph was taken in Collioure down on the Mediterranean coast of France, and they pride themselves in France on being able to get different kinds of honey. Miel de Tilleux is lime honey. This is what we get in the UK predominantly. That means multi-flower honey. These are candles. Chatagnier, that's chestnut. Miel de Misquez, that's Misquez. It's Misquez in English, and it's a Mediterranean plant. Then we've got that's again is a Mediterranean plant only. But the one I love is one along here. It's white. Oh yes, here we go. White heather. How you get your bees just to go to white heather, I don't know. But you can see the various hives here. This is totally plastic. This is what we call a skep. It's basically a straw rope wound and bound together. This looks very much like what we used to call a cottager's hive in the UK. And this is a log with a cut down the side. And this is what we call a nucleus, a small colony. And I think that must be several breeding small hives there. Right, new equipment secondhand. Next question is, you're going to buy a full colony of bees, and that could cost you a lot of money. A swarm, which will be ostensibly free, but is fraught with problems or potential problems, or a nucleus, which is a small colony on about 5 frames. And that is a starter colony and is, in my view, the best way to start. You just put that, when it's expanding, you put it in a full size hive and it will take off. That's, as I said earlier, the national hive, which is the most popular in the UK. And so I go back. It's basically one big box at the bottom where the queen lives and lays her eggs and rears the family. There's a thing called a queen excluder through here, which stops her going up into these boxes, and these boxes will contain honey. And that's swarm, and that's a free colony of bees. That's a nucleus box. The wooden ones are over £100 each to buy new now, but you can buy that, which is a polystyrene nucleus box, and they're about £35. And they're very light. And if you are collecting a swarm, this is the best bet. It weighs nothing. You can pick it up with great ease and just put a strap around the whole thing. This wheel on the front will block the entrance so the bees can't get out once you've got them all in there, and you can just pick it up and carry it home. That's a bit frightening. With all your equipment, it could cost you between £300 and £700 to set up one hive and your clothing. What you'll need, and this again is an American beekeeper, that's a Langstroth hive, no indentations on the side. You will need a hive, a bee suit. This gentleman's wearing a pair of white overalls and a veil, which is perfectly good and very inexpensive. You need a pair of gloves. Marigolds are as good as anything and very cheap. You need footwear. He's wearing his own shoes, but a pair of wellies will do the trick. You need a hive tool. He's carrying one in his left hand. You can't open a beehive without one. And you'll need a smoker. There we go. And you'll need bees, of course. A new national hive this year is £285. A new suit from BB Wear is actually more than that now. It's £122.99. And a pair of nice kid leather gloves will cost you £35. I wouldn't buy them. You can't clean them. You've got a pair of wellies. You will need a hive tool. A stainless steel one will cost you £10. You may get one secondhand, but I think that's inevitable, that £10. And a smoker, the new price is £46. They do come up secondhand. And a nucleus colony of bees could cost you up to 250 quid. That's an ouch figure of money for one hive full of bees. So let's take another approach. If we go second-hand, you can buy a perfectly good second-hand national beehive for £80 to £100. You can get second-hand suits for around £30. BB Wear are an excellent company. Google them, just BB Wear, and you'll find their website with all the prices. We have some good news on that score with new ones. Pair of Marigold gloves or Tesco's own household gloves, equally as good, about £2 a pair. You've got the wellies still. You've still got the hive tool. You can buy a second-hand smoker, and that's about the going rate. And if you do go for a swarm, and Joe will advise against or tell you the problems with a swarm later on, but that's a bit of a different figure, and it can be done for that. Those are the figures for one hive. Obviously, if you buy more hives, it's going to cost you more money. But in your second year, you should be able to make a second colony for yourself. That's colony of bees, not the hive. You do start to get your money back. That is a good message. Don't rely on getting a swarm. Sometimes they're coming out of the woodwork, almost literally, they're everywhere. And on other occasions, when somebody really needs a swarm, there just aren't any about. Will you get stung? Simple answer. But if you're gardening, you will get scratches from thorns. You will get stung by nettles occasionally. I was a carpenter and I used to get splinters far more regularly than I get stung by bees now. We do get stings occasionally, and that's a bee having just stung somebody in the arm, and that answers that age-old question, do bees die when they sting? Yes, that's a rather large part of its inners on the arm of the person it's stung. It can't live. It may last a couple of days, but it will eventually die. Bumblebees and wasps can sting again and again. This sting is barbed. Bumblebees stings and wasp stings aren't. And interestingly, queen honeybees stings aren't barbed, and they can sting and sting again, queen bees, but they tend not to. But the important thing to remember, it is an act of defense, not defiance. They know that if they sting you, they're going to die, but they will take one for the girls, and in defense, they will die in line of duty. You can walk up to a bee on a plant and it wouldn't dream of stinging you. It'll fly away. If you touch it, it'll fly away. It won't turn around and sting you. But these are interesting figures. I think it's slightly more than that now in Britain. 20 people die each year from anaphylaxis. And half of those die from reaction to drugs. So 10 people die from anaphylaxis, which might be related to insects. But no, half of them again, food allergies. So we're down to, out of 61.8 million people, 5 die from insect stings every year. And most of those are wasp stings. So it's about 2 people at most per year die from bee stings. But in better times, actually one of our members has just become more sensitive to bee stings, and she is going to Southmead Hospital in Bristol for desensitization. You can be desensitized over a period of time. The unfortunate thing is you can also acquire immunity and become desensitized naturally. I did. When I started, I used to react a lot more than I do now. But it can go the other way. It's very, somebody is trying to contact me. My WhatsApp's from my wife talking to my family in Australia. But, sorry about that. But if you are concerned, go to your GP, and you can be checked for allergies. So it's worth doing that if you're worried. I did before I started. The Regional Allergy Centre is for Somerset. Sorry, you people in Cornwall and Whitley Bay and Wootton Under Edge. Oh, Wootton Under Edge would go to Bristol too. Southmead Hospital. Down in Cornwall, it's probably Trelisk. It's the only big hospital you've got in Cornwall anyway. Unless you're up this end, and then it's probably Derriford in Plymouth. That's the important thing. Always wear protective clothing. I hear it all the time. Oh, I just popped up to see the girls and they weren't doing anything. And I wanted to check the food that they got in over the winter. So I took the lid off and I got stung. Well, wear a bee jacket or a veil and you won't get stung. Simple as that. This is quite important too. Always have a mobile phone with you. Should you have an anaphylactic reaction, you can phone for help. And you want it in your bee suit pocket, not inside your suit in your shirt pocket. You need to know where your hives are. An Ordnance Survey reference or postcode, but if they're in an orchard or a field, orchards and fields don't have postcodes. They do have an OS reference, and there's this new thing, or it's been around for a couple of years, called What 3 Words. And that will pinpoint you to the nearest 3 feet. Okay, it's really worth getting involved with. If you do get stung, scrape the sting away immediately. Even if it's through your glove, scrape it off the glove, or if it's in your arm or something like that, which is not very often, but scrape the sting away. It will keep on pumping while it's in you. That bulb you saw on the sting is a muscle pump, and it will keep on pumping the venom in. If you feel faint, the first thing to do is move away from the hive. If somebody you're with gets stung and is close to the hive, get them away from the hive and dial 999. And because you have got a phone in your pocket. That's an interesting fact. I'm just trying to minimize it. You definitely stand more chance of winning the lottery than getting problems with bee stings. The one big thing I would say is don't believe everything you see on the internet. I did this a couple of years ago. just Googled this. I went to images, and this is what I came up with. That's a bee, that's a bee, that's a fly, that's a bee, that's a bee, that's a bee, that's definitely a fly. There's no such thing as a dung bee. It doesn't exist. It's a figment of somebody's imagination. So just really be very careful with what you look at. And don't forget Photoshop. I write our newsletter in Somerton, and one year I was struggling for a Christmas front page. So I used this photograph, and lo and behold, suddenly it acquired a bee. And you'll notice that the bee has got pollen on its back legs, and that's not the color of holly pollen. And anyway, there's no pollen there because it's all berries. So you can make things be what you want them to be on the internet. That went viral. I think you can still find that on the internet, this photograph, but it's not. It's an amalgam, and that's made up too. That's one I made up just to show you what can be done. Bee wouldn't go up to a hedgehog like that at all, ever. But also, just to prove that you really can't believe everything that's in writing, this is a copy of the Bible, which says very simply that thou shalt commit adultery. It was called the Wicked Bible. It was published in 1631, and the publisher was actually very lucky to save his neck. There was a move to have him hanged for blasphemy, but he certainly lost his business. He went out of business. Facebook and YouTube are wonderful mediums, but there is a lot of rubbish out there, a lot of contradictory and misleading stuff. A lot of the YouTube stuff is from the United States, where they have totally different climates, and they have different bees, and they have, sorry, not different bees, beehives, and different ways of handling them. The bees are actually the same bees as here, because America doesn't naturally have bees. They all came from Europe. But also Facebook pages, there are lots of discussion groups. There's British beekeeping, there's beekeeping questions. The best one I found is, and it's not me, Stuart's Beekeeping Basics, which is a chap called Stuart Spinks from the Norfolk Honey Company. He does online videos, and if you're going to watch online videos, watch some of Stuart's online videos. They are excellent. Beekeeping, that's it, Stuart's Beekeeping Basics. Another good one is Black Mountain Bees. They're all a bit long-winded, as you're probably thinking I am by now, but they're very good, and they're factual, and they're based in the UK. This one's in Wales, this one's in Norfolk. Right, very close to the end. You've been very patient, all of you. We covered what a honeybee is, what beekeeping is. That's a log hive in Africa. Why we keep bees, how much time it'll take, how much it'll cost, and we covered stings. And next week, Joe will be looking at the occupants of the hive, so we'll actually be looking more into bees themselves and some elementary biology, life cycle of the bees, and the life cycle of the colony. And there's a queen surrounded by her attendants. Okay, I'm going to unshare my screen now. And has anybody got any questions? Please have some questions.
I had a couple of questions about swarms.
Yeah.
It was one question that turned into two. The first question, bear with me just a second, Anna, is are all honeybees cultivated now and not wild?
Not all of them, but in the UK, the vast majority are, yeah.
About swarming.
Yeah.
A colony of honeybees have swarmed.
Yep.
Will they then have belonged to another beekeeper?
Yes.
Like, I'm thinking about the ethics of taking somebody else's colony. So if somebody happens upon...
This is really good, Elsie. You'll love this.
It happens upon a swarm.
And Joe,
like, is there another beekeeper that's kind of on the hunt
No,
you know, looking for their bees? Can I, you know,
it's one of the occasions where in law, it's finders keepers. And I've actually been collecting a swarm with somebody, and a guy, they were on an elevated bit of garden by a little road, and the guy came up the road as we were collecting them and said, "That's where they went." And he said, "You're taking them, are you?" And I said, "Yeah," because I was going to give them to a new beekeeper. They said, "Oh, okay." It's a given. If they land in your property, they're definitely yours. If they land in somebody else's property and they ask you to go and remove them, they're yours. Once they're not, you don't own the bees really ever. You just look after them. So if half of them
that feels like a
decide-
really good point.
Yeah, you back that up, won't you, Joe?
Certainly.
Can I ask a question?
The thing is that traditionally the bees were still yours while you kept them in sight, or you could, if you were, say, an elderly lady, you could have a runner, you know, send your grandson off to chase them, and while they were in sight they still belonged to you. But the moment you lost sight of them, they go back to being what was called ferae naturae, or wild creatures, and therefore whoever finds them can take them because they're wild creatures.
Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
I'm totally new to this, and I can't quite work out how, if you find a swarm somewhere, how do you persuade them to get into your box?
You can either bribe them, talk to them nicely, or neither of which will work. Or you can literally, if they're hanging in a tree, put a basket or something underneath them, knock the branch, they will all fall into the basket, and then you can tip them into one of those polystyrene hives I was showing you.
Yeah.
Provided you've got the queen, they will stay in the box. And the thing to do is, if you put them on the ground in the box, if there will be bees coming out of the hive and going in. If there are darn sight more going in than are coming out, you've got the queen. And then you could turn the dial to what we call queen excluder, where the slots are quite narrow. And the queen is definitely in there then, and the bees will all go in, and you can turn the dial to close it up completely, pick it up and take it home. It's
not that easy.
Yeah, Joe will talk about that in session 4, but it is actually very, very simple to do in most cases. It's very impressive. It's best done with a crowd because you'll have their lasting admiration.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay.
Hi, Stuart. I've got a quick question, if that's all right. At what point in the course do we maybe talk about where we site the bees, the best sighting areas and things like that?
It's session 4.
Okay.
Yep. Have you got a colony now that you? I think.
No, I haven't. I'm just doing garden plans for the future.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to decide things.
I can never remember. It's 3 or 4.
That's absolutely fine. That's great. Thank you.
Most probably 4. Yeah. Anybody else?
So is there much competition between hives? So if you've got a number of hives in close proximity, like an apiary, what prevents them being hostile to each other?
If they're strong colonies, they sort it out for themselves. There are certain times of the year when bees will try to rob from another hive, but they only get away with it if the hive is weak. And in August, early August, late July, early August, wasps will try and rob your hives as well. But there's a video in one of the sessions of a few wasps trying to do that, and they get repelled by the bees in strong colonies. It's weak colonies that will suffer. I've got in the garden here, I've got 4 colonies, all of which are very strong. They're within 8 feet of each other, and it's not a problem. It's but again, that will how to go about that is covered in session 4, orientation of the hives and all that sort of thing. So.
And do you tend to put wasp traps out to try and stop the invasion of the wasp?
I do. Do you, Joe?
Say that again.
Yes, I always put out wasp traps.
in the battle.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Do you, Jackie?
Yes, very much so.
Yeah.
And it varies season on season. I mean, some years they're an absolute menace.
Yeah.
But I have lost a weak colony to wasps within 24 hours.
Mm.
Horrible thing.
It can be very quick. The only thing to watch out with wasp traps is moths will go in there, and also European hornet. But my wife has seen it as her duty daily to do a hornet patrol, and she goes around with a short stick and puts the stick down in the wasp trap for the hornets to climb on, and she just pulls them out, flicks the stick, and the hornets fly away. And they're lovely hornets.
Can I ask a question about royal jelly?
Yeah.
It's more out of interest than about intention to take lots of royal jelly. But my understanding is that sorry, just bear with me. Just sorry, bear with me just a second.
Sorry, Elsie's trying to get back to the sun. Yeah, that was the politest interruption I've heard in a long time, actually. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so yeah. So my understanding is that a colony will make only one queen. Is that right? I'm just thinking about how you would take royal jelly out of a hive without disturbing the production of a queen.
Right.
Like how does that process work?
It's not something I would do myself, but when in swarming season, it's possible for them to make multiple queen cells in order to make a new queen. The risk is that they will then throw out multiple swarms, or secondary swarms called casts. They're smaller. Depending on how many queen cells you've got, you may have to be removing them anyway to prevent them swarming. So, or to reduce the chances of swarming. And so you could certainly harvest the royal jelly if it's in that cell, but you're not going to get rich on the amount of royal jelly you'll get. But
Can I come in there?
Is that Paul?
Yeah, royal jelly commercially they produce it using queenless colonies, and they graft up grafting bars of queen cells. The colonies then pull the queen cells and fill the cells up with royal jelly, and then the larvae is flicked out, and they aspirate the royal jelly out of the cell, and then do it all over again. A lot of this is done in China, with very adept young ladies grafting larvae very, very quickly.
Yeah, because you can actually make queens by, as Paul said, by grafting larvae into a prepared queen cup, which you put in the hive. And if there's a larva in a certain position in the hive and a certain angle, queen cells hang down. If you put a cell in that's hanging down with a larva in it, they will turn it into a queen.
Apparently, you can use the larva you flick out. Cecil Tonsley used to do it in this country years ago, and he outsourced his production to a family in Northamptonshire, and he went in one Friday to pick up the production for that week, and there were the kids eating fried queen larvae on toast.
Right.
That was some years ago.
I think I preferred the Thai fish cakes I had for tea.
Beans myself on toast, I think.
Yeah, right. Anybody else for more?
Stuart, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
You mentioned that you'd help us to get some bees.
Yeah.
And I've been reading up about don't do anything till you've done your course. But do we need to book or order a nucleus?
If it swarms, and I collect swarms, then it's not a case of ordering. It's if they're there, they're there. But we have in previous years had a swarm list. Jackie used to do it, and I've done it a couple of years, and just make a note of people who are looking for a swarm. Nucleus colonies, there are a good few of our members who make nucleus colonies for sale every year. I would, if you can, I would start with a nucleus colony, simply because it's a guaranteed colony. I mean, Joe will go into this more on that session, but there could be problems with the swarm. The most obvious is you don't know anything about them.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Don't tell bees, I guess, aren't you, if you have a nucleus.
Yeah, there are nucleus. There are people getting in touch with me all the time saying, I've got several nucleus colonies. Do you know anybody who wants one? So, or is looking for one. They will be selling them, but they've been going for about £100 in this area in recent years, which is a pretty fair price, I think. Yeah. So those will be available. I'll tell you what, Michelle, if you like, we'll start a wanting colony list.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. If you email me that, I'm the Somerton Bees address. Okay. We know that because we've had an email conversation. Yeah.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Anybody else?
As a follow-up sort of question, is there a risk if you buy second-hand equipment like a second-hand hive that you can end up getting diseases?
Yes.
Or yeah.
Yes, simply put, but don't ever buy second-hand frames. Buy the boxes, and then you can scorch them out with a blowtorch, and that will kill most diseases and any parasites that might be in there. You literally scorch the wood on the inside of the box, and that'll kill most things. It's nearly killed me on a couple of occasions.
Thank you.
That's all right. Sorry, it's traumatic.
What you're saying, Stu, is that you shouldn't, just to clarify, that you shouldn't ever buy frames secondhand because they're just too difficult to clean of disease, in essence.
Yeah, sorry, I muted myself. I had another cough. Yeah, it's really not worth trying to cleanse them. You could remove all the wax and boil them in soda solution, but quite honestly, for the sake of a couple of quid, it's better to start with new frames and new wax. But the boxes, yeah, quite a few of my hives are second hand because I'm a skinflint. You'll find that out in a couple of weeks' time. I don't like.
Well, I'm Scottish, so
I'm
that's
not
definitely the way
Scottish,
I'd go.
but,
Aye.
Somerset born and bred.
Do you have an opinion about plastic frames?
Yeah, some people use them. Some people use plastic frames and plastic foundation. With plastic foundation, sorry, I'm going to step on Joe's toes in later sessions here, but you have to coat the plastic frames with molten wax really to get the bees to take it. But plastic frames are okay, I think. I've not used them, but have you used them, Joe?
Funnily enough, no, I haven't. I don't know why. I could never quite take to them.
I'm afraid we're very anti-plastic of any sort, really. At least wooden frames, you know, when they reach the end of their life, they're easily recyclable. Whereas plastic is, well, plastic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Could I just say, Stu, there's a few people, do you want to, I'm not trying to stop the questions at all, but is there anything you want to say? There's a few people needing to leave.
Okay.
Is there anything you need to just say about next week? And then carry on with the questions again.
By all means. No, if you want to leave, please do. Sorry to see you go. Joe will be leading the session next week. But if you want to ask questions, I'm here. Joe's here. So please ask away. But if you feel you have to leave, then please do. Because I mean, we're coming up to 2 hours now. It's time has gone on, but you know, if any questions, ask away.
Hi, I've got just I need to go as well. Is it the same login for next week?
Can't hear you.
Same login for next week?
Yeah, it's the same login details exactly, Paul. What I did was I just made the code to be the same every week. Okay.
Okay, great. Thanks.
So it's 7 o'clock again next week. If you could get here a bit early, I'm not sure whether Chris will be dormant next week, or I'm a bit disappointed she's not wearing a high-vis jacket and a white coat, but there you go.
You can't have everything. No, I mean, we'll do it between the three of us, I expect.
Yeah,
Again,
okay.
you know, door manning.
Yeah.
It's difficult. We did find it difficult because quite a few people have come and tried to join with just a Christian name, and you know, we've got a list of 90 people.
Yeah.
We've done our best, but yeah.
Yeah.
You can, if anyone is not sure, once you're up on the screen, you can just hover at the side and you can rename yourself. So if there's anyone who can rename themselves and give themselves a surname as well, that would be really helpful.
Yeah. We've still got 66 people in the room, but
oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so 30 have left, but that's fine.
Stuart, can I come in with a question?
Sure.
Obviously, the reason for us being on the course is so we don't have failures in our first couple of years. But is there some sort of reality in relation to when you first started, how many colonies perhaps you lost? You know, 'cause I think you obviously learn from experience.
Yeah.
But if you're spending £100 for bees, you don't want to lose them in your first year, do you?
No, I've lost one colony only over the winter, which is the period that most people worry about. They lose sleep over, some people. You know, are they okay because you can't open the hive? I've only ever lost one. Disease, I've lost, I would think, I had a bad year last year with a thing called chronic bee paralysis virus.
Me too.
Jackie's lost a colony to that too.
Yeah.
I lost 2 or 3 last year and 1 the year before. And in actual fact, what I did eventually, because it's incurable, I had 1 hive remaining that had it. Some will recover, some won't. And I was trying to give them the benefit of the doubt. But in the end, I thought, no, I'm just losing too many colonies of bees to this problem. And I just euthanized them, I'm afraid. Shut them up and sent them to a better place. And I've not got a problem now. But sometimes you have to bite the bullet. But having said that, I've lost 1 to wasps only. So over 12, 13 years, I have lost maybe half a dozen colonies in total. And I've been up to as many as 12 hives at any one time. So if you, I would say about 75% of the time, it's user error rather than bee problem itself.
Okay.
Yeah, that may sound a bit harsh, but I think that's true. Would you agree with that, Jackie?
Yes, I think that's you know, sort of the sort of rate. The average winter losses of colonies in the southwest of England varies in an average year between 15 and 18%. So there always are a certain number of losses naturally, rather than, you know, you're at fault. But so you certainly, you know, are going to have the occasional losses.
And it does hurt the first time it happens too.
Yeah, I seem to have done better with winter losses, but chronic bee paralysis virus has taken a colony out of mine in the summer, and typically a very strong colony. 1 minute they're thriving and plentiful, and then within days just dead. And it is soul destroying, but as Stuart said, you can actually deal with it. So
there's the perceived treatment is to basically try and take away the diseased bees, but that's easier said than done. It's, you know, it's horrible to see, as Jackie says. You have a pile of dead bees on the floor outside the hive, and in session 5 I've actually got some video of one of my hives that had it, showing you what it's like.
Thank you for an interesting session.
Sorry?
I said thank you for an interesting
You're
first
very
session.
welcome. I was only worried that this is probably the most boring, actually.
Well, not really.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
See you next week.
Okay. Any more for any more? All right. Well, if there's no more questions, shall we down to 53 people? If you've got any questions, please go ahead, but otherwise we'll close the meeting down and see you all again next week.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks very much.
You're
Bye.
very welcome.
Good night.
Great, thank
Night
you.
all. Keep
Bye.
safe.
Bye.
Night,
Bye,
everyone.
everyone.
Bye.
I'd
Bye.
like to say safe journey
Good
home.
night. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Aren't you pleased, Stuart, that this wasn't at the rugby club tonight? It's blowing an absolute whale outside.
It is here. It's lashing the windows here.
Dreadful.
Yeah. How do you think that went, guys?
I'll just wait till everyone's gone, shall we?
Oh, it's going to be that bad, is it?
No. I just, I've just got a few questions about some people. If you've got your list there,
Okay,
have
yeah,
you?
sure. Evening,
I will
Lionel.
do it. If you're not sure how to leave, we're finishing the meeting. There's a red button saying leave or something.
Down
Maria,
bottom right-hand corner.
bottom
Evening,
right.
Lionel.
Just unmuted it. Thanks, Stuart. That's very
You're very
good.
welcome.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Hi there, Lionel. Good to see you.
Hello, Joe. Cheers, mate. Yeah. I'll see you next week then.
Okay, Lionel. Yeah.
See you then.
Cheerio.
We finally
Cheers.
got through to that lady, didn't we? She did turn up.
Which one?
Sarah Beanie.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was having trouble getting email messages to her, so.
Oh. Hi, Nicola.
Hi there, Nico.
Hi, Mum and Dad.
Hi there.
Hello. All right.
Yeah, fine.
Could see everything, hear everything all right?
Yeah, good.
Excellent.
So I'd hang around in case you wanted my
we'll have a bit of
my comments in particular, or whether you wanted me to go away now and then I'll talk to you separately.
No. This is for everyone else. This is our daughter, Nicola.
Yeah.
Hello,
Nicola.
Nico.
Her husband did the beekeeping course about 5
Ooh.
years, 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah,
But
easily,
Nicola's
I
doing
think.
well now.
Yeah.
So so my
You got to check the fondant.
yeah, not right now.
I wouldn't do it now.
It's a bit wet and dark. It'll scare me as well as the bees. So we
Nicola has actually already got some bees because she's taking over her husband's bees.
well, I'm doing I'm doing it with my husband.
Yeah,
so,
together.
We've sort of previously sort of divided jobs up. So we've got sort of husband jobs and Nicola jobs, but we're trying to do more stuff together. But also, particularly with the bees, we there's lots of jobs that we didn't take honey off this year because my husband was busy at the kind of critical moment, and so we just felt that was if I knew what to do as well, then that would make sense. Is the plan?
Indeed.
You phone. I tell you what you do, Nicola. You phone 890-357.
Tell Dad to get round there.
Dad.
That always used to cost me £10. That word. Whenever my daughter said, "Dad," that was £10. I reckon.
Yeah. Only 10.
What's a while
You got
ago?
off lightly, Stuart.
What's a while ago?
Yeah. Dad's been really helpful. He's already started to come and obviously, well, so I've obviously, Mum and Dad have had bees my entire life, so I kind of I've absorbed a bit through osmosis and helped extract honey and helped just being around while honey's been being extracted and things over the years. So I've got a vague idea of the terminology, but it's the specifics.
Yeah,
That's
purely out of interest, Nicola, we put these courses together, and what we don't get is sort of user feedback. Sometimes I think maybe they're just being over polite, but did it make sense?
This session today,
yeah.
Right, don't take this badly because some bits did and some bits didn't, and there were some bits where I sort of got a bit lost in the flow of how does one section relate to the next section. It was it didn't always tell a consistent story all the way through the whole presentation.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
When
I think the trouble with the first session is it's saying who we are, and
yeah. Oh, I know you've got lots of objectives.
Yeah.
You personally have lots of objectives from this session. I think it's important to also to think about what your audience's objectives are, and sort of kind of make sure that it's clear, you're clear up front what the objectives for the session are. I think that so I used to do kind of many things, but I've delivered my fair share of training and stuff like that. So I'm not just, I hope you feel I have some credibility and I'm trying to give fair and balanced feedback. And the kind of what massively comes across is, particularly you, Stuart, how you've got this real sort of interest and vast knowledge about it. And I just have this feeling that, we could get you talking and it would be almost impossible to stop you because you're so enthusiastic and you know so much. So kind of, it's a real thing.
That is enough.
Well, no, but that really, really comes across your sort of enthusiasm for it. So kind of don't change you, if that makes sense. I just think some of the sort of flow between the sides.
Yeah.
Sometimes you bring up a slide, and I wouldn't be completely sure how it related to the slide before.
Yeah.
And quite where you were going with that slide. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does, and I think it's particularly true of that session. The other 5 sessions are, I think, far more logical. Would you agree, Joe?
Yeah, they're more natural units, aren't they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
so this one just seemed more like this was like almost like a really friendly conversation. It was almost sort of like this was more like a sort of friendly conversation about just sort of interesting stuff. And so it was a really lovely, gentle start. I think kind of. So when I'm not saying there's anything massively and fundamentally wrong with it, but there was a couple of bits, as I say, there was just a couple of bits where I couldn't quite work out how it related to what had gone before and where you were going with it. But that's the sort of that's the criticism, but it doesn't mean it wasn't,
I think the answer to that one is it really wasn't going anywhere.
Stu, would you like some more specific comments if I let Nicola have a look at the presentation?
Sure. Yeah.
Will that be good, Nico?
Yeah.
I'm a bit busy.
All right. Don't worry then.
Yeah.
Another time.
Yeah.
Before you run this course next time, yes, just not right now. I've got a big job interview. I've got a big job interview tomorrow, so don't set me deadlines that are too immediate.
No. Okay, sometime.
I think one of the things you said was it's not more like a friendly chat. I think that's one of the purposes of that first session.
Yeah.
Is to break the ice.
Yeah, I mean it is, and I think also because presumably when you do this in person, you obviously kind of, people turn up a bit early and you start that friendly chat, and people, it's about building the sort of the network and the credibility and the sort of the reason for joining the association rather than being an independent beekeeper as well. And I think that's the sort of importance of your network, and I think that kind of almost could be brought out more, the sort of extra stuff that you get when it's worth paying up the fees. Kind of don't be afraid to sell your benefits, I think, up front. As well.
That's a very good point.
A couple of slides that didn't have titles on the top. There's a couple of little things like that. But I'm just so I've got another job interview with the other company is now been set for next Thursday. So it's all going on.
You better go and get your beauty sleep, love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next Wednesday, then you can criticise your dad's presentation.
Yeah.
We're looking forward to that.
May I also add that this is the first time this has been done via Zoom.
Oh, I know. Yeah. Brilliant.
So it's a completely new experience, and you don't have the benefit of having a room full of people where you actually feed off your group. When you can actually see the body language of your group, you get a feel for, is this going right? Do I need to pull back a bit here? Do I need to give a bit more there? And without actually having the benefit of that group through Zoom, I mean, Stuart's only got view of what, half a dozen people probably when the slides are up. So I think that is something that isn't going to make it as easy as if it was where it normally is at the rugby club.
Funny enough, I said that to Joe as well, you know, because I was scrolling through some of the little pictures to sort of see everyone's faces, and I was saying to Joe, it's so different to when you speak to a group in person, because all the faces, they sort of know nobody's watching them, so they're not reacting in the same way as a live audience would.
Yeah.
Anyway, I thought it was really satisfactory. We managed to keep on top of the logging people in virtually. A few people had to wait a while, but not too long. But the main difficulty was not knowing who some of the people were because of the name on their setup.
Well, I mean, next week, because I've dealt with them on emails and so on, a lot of the names are familiar. So
yes, sure. It was the ones that were just Chris and Jack and Tom.
Yeah.
You know. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
But anyway,
it didn't feel like the first time you'd ever done it on Zoom.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
No, and I was a bit worried that you'd kind of almost put in too many apologies about, you know, this is our first time, or we, you know, I was a bit worried you'd do all that up front, but actually, it didn't feel like that at all. It felt really kind of slick and organised, and you know, the kind of the technology worked, which is always a joy. You know, so there was, I think actually that side of things you don't need to worry about. You know, it seemed really, it didn't feel like the first time you'd done it on Zoom. So, yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
The only thing I need to remember, if I'm doing it again and I mute all, I must remember that mutes you as well.
When I'm sharing the screen, that microphone disappears on my screen.
Yes, it does. Yes,
so we must. Whether it's on or off.
I don't know quite how we do. Nothing we can do about that, I don't think. Because we're
the big problem is, as we know, is letting in 96 people.
Well, in the end, it didn't take too long, and nobody seemed to be too impatient, did they?
No, there were one or two turned up around 8 o'clock, though, weren't they?
I know. There were, and funnily enough, there are people whose names weren't on the list. I did let them in because it was already 8 o'clock, but I'll need to let you know all that.
Yeah, one was Nikki Bolton, I think. That's
she's not on the list, and one was Helen Reid. Neither of them are
Helen
on mine.
Reid is actually. There's another name on the list. It's his daughter. I'll sort that out for you. Yeah, sorry.
We needn't talk about it now. You can tell me who sent apologies as well, and I'll do all the matching up tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely fine. How about you, Eric? You're speechless, mate.
Yes, I thought. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes. No, you can't hear me. Oh, you can. Yeah. No, I thought it went fairly well. A bit too much about plant sex life, but apart from that, I would expect that from you.
No, me and sex life.
No, it is difficult. I mean, trying to run a meeting on Zoom, particularly with the numbers involved.
Yeah.
I mean, it isn't. And the thing about you lose the ability to get the feedback from the audience.
Yeah.
You can't read people's body language and how they're reacting. It's difficult. But I mean, generally, I think it went fairly well.
Good.
I mean, the fact that people stayed on board.
That's something I always do with the Somerset Zooms. Because I'm a watcher, I tend to keep an eye on how many people are in the room, how many are leaving. And they drop off during question time, like fruit bats leaving a tree. You know, it's quite amazing. People have very short attention spans in the question time after about 10 minutes.
Well, I think a lot of people, you know, they want to hear the discussion, they want to hear the thing, but they don't really want to hang about for questions which they think are irrelevant or off, you know, that are at that point in time or of no interest to them.
Yeah.
So,
is there some scope, Stuart, for, because it's via Zoom, perhaps setting up a means where they can make contact and ask questions out of session that they may not have thought about?
There is a chat facility at the bottom of the page, but the problem is...
I mean after the session, between now and next week.
We can have a breakout room. If people,
I was handling the chat as it went along, by and large.
Oh, good. Because
I don't know.
I looked at one point and there were 24 questions, and I thought, whoa.
No. I was managing some of them.
Yeah.
Well, can you see the chat, Stu, now? If you click on it, down the bottom, chat.
Yeah. 26 new messages, I thought.
Yeah, but there's loads of messages.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
45. Nothing notable. Down the bottom are thank yous, which is nice, as people have left. So can everyone can see the chat, can't they, if they click on it?
Yes, I can now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you like the co-hosting thing, though, Eric? It's really useful. I mean, Joe and Chris were taking the register as they were coming in and having a quick chat if they had a problem with the people coming in. I think it's worth its weight in gold. I mean, 15 quid, I think, is a small price to pay. But Jackie and I have got other opinions on that, but they don't relate to us.
I'm just going through the chat bit, but yes, quite a lot of thank yous, which is always nice.
Lovely, really nice.
That's good.
And see you next week.
Because there were some people who either couldn't or didn't turn their videos on.
Yep.
And I just sort of wondered, but I mean, I can see, I happened to notice Harry Dearden, he didn't have his video on at all, but I mean, he
did for a bit. And he was looking as bored as.
Oh, right. But anyway, he was still there at 8:52, and then he says thank you when he went. So, you know.
Just so you know, what Zoom does is if you're doing it, certainly if you're doing it on your phone, and say you kind of click off to look at something else on your phone,
it turns the camera off.
Then. So there's a chance that people are just listening at that point, but you know, maybe they've had a ping for an email that comes in, they're quickly replying to, or something like that. So
it happens on iPads as well, apparently.
Okay.
Because I did a test iPad run on Zoom with in fact Maureen yesterday, just to work out how to help people if they were getting stuck because the meeting controls, you know, the mute buttons and all the icons don't stay up on iPads. They vanish.
And
you have to click the screen to bring them back.
And it does on my phone as well.
Yeah. There is. Are you on your phone now, Nicola?
Yeah, because my laptop doesn't have a video.
That's another thing, of course. Not everybody has a camera.
That's true.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, that's good. That's encouraging.
Yeah, an overwhelmingly sort of positive and interesting session. So my any slightly negative comments are very minor, really. So
thank you.
You can't be perfect.
Absolutely not. No, I mean, I totally agree with you. Eric,
we all believe he is. We all believe perfect, you know.
Stu, I've thought of something. You need to go into your ordinary computer settings for your mouse, and you need to make your cursor, your pointer, bigger.
Yes, that red. I don't know if I can still do it. Actually, no, because you have to be screen sharing to do it.
No, but just make your cursor bigger in your main computer settings.
Yeah, I can use that red thing as well.
To see,
yeah. I was just, it's just a little bit.
Is it all right? I need to go downstairs and do a few things, so I'm going to sign off now. But it was a really good session, and I'm more than happy to look over the slides, just not, in a few weeks' time. So
okay,
sure.
Oh, thank you very much.
Anyway, I'll see you soon, Mum and Dad, and see you next week, everybody else.
Okay.
Cheers,
Bye.
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 Because when you Stu, when you were pointing at the pictures of all the various different bees, and this was a wasp and this is a bee, I mean, I knew roughly what I was looking for, but there's no way I think a lot of people would have found where you were pointing.
Yeah, that illuminated, that laser pointer, as they call it, is, I think, a better tool for that. And even the drawing tool, you can draw around them.
You can.
Yeah.
But as I say, but just even in a general, because then you can use it for all the slides. Just make the arrow, your pointer arrow bigger.
Yeah, I have absolutely no problem with addressing crowds. It's just this was an invisible crowd. I think that's the problem. And I was just a little bit on edge to start with, but and I was suffering from
Didn't seem like it at all. I thought you seemed lovely.
Oh, thank you.
No,
For you, Stuart, it must feel like like you know, a newsreader on television, just looking at
a little bit,
the camera,
yeah.
trying to be animated and yourself.
Yeah.
He doesn't pay that much.
Sorry?
You come across as really friendly, Stu, and really approachable and really willing to listen and to, you know, and to answer. And I think it's just perfect. It's just the right touch.
Yeah.
And we had I think the politest interruption I've ever heard. Sorry to interrupt, Mummy.
Yes. Yeah. What makes it change to more you?
Hey, you.
I think we're going to sign off now, Stu.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll talk to you tomorrow about the list of participants.
Yeah, okay, Chris. Thank you very much indeed.
Right.
Thanks
Yeah,
very
well
much
done,
indeed for your
Stuart.
input.
Really well.
Cheers.
See you,
Yeah,
Joe.
well done.
Well
Bye.
done.
Bye,
Good
Eric.
night,
Bye,
all.
Jackie.
Yeah. Take care now. Take care,
Yeah.
everybody. Yeah. I've sent you a
Cheers.
message, Stuart.
See you soon, all of you.
Yeah,
Bye.
I've sent you a message. So
Oh,
take care
right,
and
okay.
have a good night's sleep, Stuart. I think you've earned it.
Yes,
That's
I'm going to go and have a glass
quite a
of wine.
task.
Yeah.
Quite a task.
Okay.
Bye, Eric.
Cheers.
Take care.
See you.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye.
Bye.
I'm closing it all down. Okay. Bye.